Hey guys, I hope you are doing well and your swimming is going great. Man, we have got a great show for you today. I am interviewing the one and only Coley Stickels, maybe the most creative outside the box coach that there is in swimming today. I know, it's a big statement, but I think it's true. But before we get to that, I have more exciting news. Fike Swim has launched paddles. I know what you're thinking. Woo! Which three colors do I get to choose from? Yellow, blue, or green? And that sucks. All the decades we've been doing this, and we've got like three colors to choose from. These things could be really freaking cool. They could be works of art, and that is what I have done. Check these things out. This is just a small sampling. We got Deadhead here. This is one of my favorites. We got all kinds of racing stripe combinations. We got bandana. That's one of your faves. Match it to your suit. Different colors on that one. Aliens, breakfast foods, donut, koi fish, emojis, fierce unicorns. It goes on and on. We have over 40 designs. There's going to be about 100 by December. Go check them out at fikeswim.com. Anyway, on with the show. Coley Stickels. Man, if you think I'm a 180 from conventional swimming, you have no idea. This guy is the definition of 180. So let's get into it here. While the music plays, give me a like and subscribe, please, and thank you. I really appreciate it. And also note that I sat down with this guy for like an hour and a half. So I'm only giving you the first part of this, the first about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll do the second part and the third and the fourth and the fifth and whatever it takes to get through this, because you are going to love it and learn a lot. Like and subscribe. Here we go. All right, my guest today is Coley Stickels. Coley, thank you for doing this. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So a quick little bio on Coley, and I'm going to need your help filling in the blanks here where I get things wrong or whatever. But Coley, of course, was a swimmer himself at a very high level, competed at world championships, went on to coach and also coach at a very high level, head coach at Alabama, where he took that program to, I think, a fourth place finish, which was the highest the program has ever been. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that I was there for most of it.
Okay, and now you are currently the head of the pro group and the high school elite group at Texas Fort Aquatics in Frisco.
Yes, that's correct.
Coach multiple Olympians, including Matt King, and also a very heavy academic background in sport and exercise science. And this is where I need you to fill in the blanks, because this is really what I'm interested in talking about today, is how you take that academic background and apply it to your coaching. So tell us a little bit about what you've done academically.
Yeah, after I went to the University of Arizona for undergrad, had zero science background, was an English media relations major, and really started on kind of the science journey when I was in the weight room one day, kind of training myself. That we weren't really called pros back then. We were just post grads, or I certainly wasn't being paid. I was more just curious about what football players and other athletes were doing in the gym, and how that could be implemented and what effect that would have in swimming, especially sprinting. And so I just kind of observed, and it was trial and error. And then once I kind of made those observations and implemented those into my own training, I got curious really and started down the rabbit hole. I went to Dartmouth, went to school there and coached for a while. And then I was at Portland State doing a doctorate there. And then I've been grad school, LSU and Alabama and everywhere else. So I've done, not only that, I was able to be in a lab with some pretty heavy duty scientists that were actually MD, PhDs doing studies and flumes and a lot of VO2 max testing. And some of that was when I was coaching at Indiana with Dr. Steger and Dr. Tanner, and those guys. So I've been very fortunate to be around actual scientists that I even got to talk to Dr. Costel for a while, who kind of, in my opinion, invented exercise physiology as a whole. So I was fortunate enough to go up to Ball State and meet with Trappy and those guys. So I've had I know I'm name dropping, but I've had a lot of influences from kind of the science end.
Okay, well, awesome. Yeah. And how much of that were you with anybody who was studying swimming specifically, or did you take that and run with it yourself?
A lot of those guys were studying swimming. Dr. Stager at Indiana was head of the Doc Councilman's performance center, which was recently just shut down, but that was going on for years since his passing, and even during his lifetime. He was a brilliant physiologist in his own right. So Stager, Dr. Costal was also studying swimming. A lot of these guys studied swimming. And really, when I was at Indiana, it was me coming in, and there were a bunch of graduate students and scientists that were professors there, and I'd come up with a theory, whether it be warm up or VO2 max testing or whatever we wanted to, go down, and we would try to get some science to test whatever theory I had.
Wow, that's great. So I'm going to kick things off with a question about pie chart. If I went into a room full of swimmers and coaches and parents, and I said, create a pie chart for me, it's divided into three sections. You get three choices: swimming, dry land / lifting, and everything else, nutrition, recovery, etc. My guess is that the average response would put swimming, in terms of importance on that pie chart, would put swimming at least 70%, if not more. But I'm also guessing you would have a very different looking pie chart.
Yeah, I don't know. I would probably I don't, people have asked me this question before. I think in terms of nutrition, I don't know. It's important, obviously, but it's really hard to implement as a swim coach.
Right.
And you're
Especially
going
with
to
high
get
schoolers.
exactly, and you're going to get varying opinions on that. If anywhere from the keto diet to Atkins to carb loading and all these different theories, and some have efficacy and some have none, and so and the science is changing, and that's one thing that's really interesting about this whole conversation is
Right.
that it evolves. So in answer to your question, I don't really think that dry land or weights is any more or less important than swimming. So
Right.
with the exception of the nutrition, I would basically compare those equally.
Yeah. Yeah, as would I. And so let's start with the big one, even though it's not maybe the biggest on your pie chart. For most people, it is swimming. Take us through how you structure when you're going into a season like the short course season that typically runs September through about late February, early March. How do you as a coach think about the shape of that season? Because for those watching, the typical traditional shape of the season is you spend a couple of weeks doing some dry land, or sorry, some drill work that most people just kind of write off, and then you spend several weeks ramping up the volume really high, and at some point in October, which we sometimes call Rocktober, you're hitting at least 9 practices a week, heavy yardage, high intensity. You bring it down a little bit for a midseason meet, and then you ramp it way back up for holiday training, and then bring it way back down for the end of the season. How does it look for you?
Yeah, nothing like that.
I figured.
We do. I do everything in terms of these. Really, everything's in microcycles. I really don't even get in or discuss meso or macro. It's too far down the road. There's too many variables, and people always ask me about it, and it's like it's too far along. Things may change. People might get hurt. People might be ill. I mean, you don't know the circumstances. So I try to keep everything micro within periods of like maybe maximum 16-week cycles. And then during that period, every day has kind of a different emphasis. So the intensity and the volume will change within those days, but really the kind of the sequencing stays the same. if that makes sense. So on Monday, we're always kind of doing freestyle emphasis with a back end kind of 100 aspect component. And then Tuesday would be more dolphin kicking, monofin, underwater hypoxic work, and some recovery. Wednesday, lactate, so on and so forth. Those don't really change in terms of the emphasis. They change in terms of the intensity and the volume throughout the season.
Okay. So do you hit the ground running on day one? Like, is it okay, we're going to do some back end work, or is it, let's take it easy with drills?
I typically hit the ground running. We're not doing an excessive amount of volume, so it's not like I'm, you know, tolerant. Well, I'm not getting the athletes that I'm working with exposed to injury or illness or anything like that. I think I'm pretty good about that, and so we're not, just jumping in and doing 7,000, which I've seen colleges do, doubles right out of the gate, long course, and it's like, well, nothing like that. We might jump in and do 3,000 or 4,000 yards the first practice, which is 75% drills done in sequences of 25s, 50s, 75s, that type of thing. So that's still hitting the ground running per se for us, because we're never really doing a ton of volume, but we are doing a lot of quality stroke work and drills, that type of thing.
Right. Now, you've mentioned drills a couple of times, so I want to be sure that I touch on this because I think you are very unique in how much drill work you do, what kind of drill work you do. Typically, in my experience, the drill work that is done in a team practice is more like active recovery, where it's like, okay, let's do some 50s on kind of a tight interval, 45, 50, maybe a minute. And kids end up doing just like, double arm backstroke or one arm butterfly because it's just the easiest. But you take a very different approach, and I was shocked when you told me you don't really do intervals. What does that mean?
Yeah, the drills are complex enough, admittedly. So, and the drills are evolving. And so when people ask me about the drills, we do certain drills and they're more of an evolution from what we've done 10 years ago. So I don't know what I was doing 10 years ago in terms of drills, but they probably look something, they're morphed into something like what we're doing now. And so they evolve based on what I'm seeing, kind of anecdotally in the water. If we're all looking like we can't catch on the top third of the freestyle stroke or catch, then I make a drill accordingly. Or if I'm seeing commonalities or flaws kind of inherent throughout the group, then I will either make up a drill on the fly or change a drill that I've done in the past so that it's relevant to the group that I'm currently working with.
Right. So you see a problem and you reverse engineer it to
exactly
trial and error. Maybe this will work, maybe it won't. We'll
Yes, exactly. They are exactly. They're trial and error, and there are a million drills that I've tried and failed with, but they keep evolving. And so, and a lot of time, I determine whether a drill has succeeded or failed based on feedback from the swimmer. Sometimes it's just an innate feel. If they feel like, well, yes, that got my hips rotating in a certain direction, or my pitch, or my angle through my hip or with my hand, or whatever the drill is, if they feel like that it made a difference, then it did. I mean, as long as it's not destructive to the stroke or something like that, but as long as it's keeping the integrity of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. But now, in my experience working with high schoolers, they tend to rush through things. And so how do you manage telling them, all right, guys, we're doing some drill work, no intervals, ready, go. And, you get somebody who's like rushing through it. How do you police that?
That's a really, really great question. And I'm not sure I do it very well. The other day, we rush through drills. So once you get through the learning curve, which can take people days, weeks, months, and it's like told you earlier, it's like learning a foreign language.
Right.
But once you get it down and you get through kind of the drills, then I typically change it. But once you get kind of the pattern down, people have a tendency in my group, even some of the best Olympians and people I've worked with, that they rush through the drills. And so I've noticed that recently, some of the swimmers that have been with me the longest are kind of, oh, well, I know that drill, let's get through it, versus what is
Right.
the emphasis of anchoring the hand or rolling, over the shoulder or over the arm. And so I've kind of had to slow the group down and say, look, those of you that do know the drills, remember what the emphasis is. So it's really just kind of a reminder, I think, of what we're doing the drill for. And then maybe recently I've kind of changed where I'm doing stroke counts on the drill. So if I'll use something rudimentary like a right arm freestyle. Instead of just ripping through it and going fast, now it's like you get a right arm freestyle, but you get 3 that are underwater and 3 over water for the course of the 25. So they're forced to slow it down via stroke rate and stroke count versus just going through the motion. So that's what I'm having to do now. I'm kind of having to alter the drill and get them to slow it down sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's great. Because in my view, technique is the cap on your potential. And there are far too many kids who they've hit 16, 17, 18 years old, and they've done all the yardage that they can do, but they have so many bad habits that are so deeply ingrained. And it's like, oh my gosh, we gotta step it way back and almost, teach your body from scratch, build it back up. um, this is my soapbox actually, because I think in this country we do not do enough. We're a little bit too eager to move kids up the food chain from the bronze group to the silver group to the gold group. And I think that there are other countries that do a really good job of this, particularly in Asia, like Korea and Japan and China. Like they really take the time with their kids to develop the stroke before they put the yardage on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even in terms of the top end at the highest level, you look at Netherlands and you look at Hungary and you look at the number per capita. I don't
Right.
know. I'm arguing it is the U.S. the best team in the world.
Right.
Based on total numbers, I would argue we're not. So,
Yeah, no, I
um,
think we benefit from size. We got a big population and we've got really good infrastructure. We have world-class pools all over the place.
yeah.
And we've kind of, ridden our coattails on that and just allowed it to carry on like, oh, everything's working, we're on top of the world. I think the rest of the world is slowly catching up.
They are, and there's a lot of, and we have a lot of great coaches, and I think
Right.
some of the coaches are at the collegiate level, but many of them are at the club level, and a lot of them don't get enough credit. I've seen that because obviously I've been in the ISL, I've been over internationally, I've coached college and I've coached club for the longest, but I do think that there are certain club coaches and there are a few college coaches that are doing a great job, better than others. And in the club realm, you just don't get much credit. So it's because everything is kind of at the top end and
Right.
the Olympics and that kind of thing.
Yeah. So in a typical practice, how many yards do you about? I know it varies, but how many yards do you kind of aim for? And within that yardage, what percentage would you guess is drill work?
So I think I'm off. The question I'm most often asked is how many yards do you do? And I really don't know. And I think the better question might be what is the heart rate above a certain threshold? And I'm not using the word threshold in terms of lactate inflection point. I'm using it in terms of I'm looking at heartbeats above. So on Monday, if I am doing back end and I'm using, we're doing 150 kind of second 50s of hundreds. I want the heart rate 170 plus, and I want that for a period of 18 minutes or above. So those are the variables I'm looking at. I'm not really looking at how many yards did we do. I'm looking at quality beats. And so we're using, polar monitors and different things to look at that real time. I'm not sure how accurate they are, but they're pretty accurate, I think. And they're helpful because I tell everyone they're kind of like a polygraph. You've got these iPads and they're flashing colors at you. I don't really have to say anything. They know what intensity they're working at based on whatever color is flashing at them. And so that's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm looking at how long are we in these zones. That's really what I'm looking at versus just yardage. In answer to your question, it's probably somewhere between, on a typical day, 4,000. We'll never really go over, I think, 6 in a day. And then there are days during taper and stuff. I mean, I think we did a 2-hour practice the other day, and I think we went like 2,800 or something. It took forever, and a lot of rest, and it's a lot of explanation, and it's a lot of drills. And so it just kind of depends on where we're at in the season and what I'm seeing and what kind of group I'm working with.
Yeah. Yeah. A good taper practice can take almost as much as a normal practice because you
Yes.
should be resting and really paying attention to the details.
Yes.